people are people. And my takeaway from today is that's what we are. We're people. We all work around and with what we're given. Some of us slower, some of us faster, but we all do it because that's what the God-given breath gives us, the ability to deal with it. Right. And as we choose free will, we are in a country of free will, correct?
For now.
For now. We get to choose.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Joe, Dr. Energy Piazza, and
RaRa is in the house, Kathryn Asaro Myers.
Welcome back to BU Network Podcast, Conversations Worth Having. On our podcast, you can expect three things. The BU guest moment, which is a highlight from the guest that you heard leading off the show. The BU moment, and the BU final moment, sort of what we call our takeaway moment.
As promised, we are going to give you a special audible. On each show, your job, well, not really your job, but the thing that we ask you to do is to find it. You know the game, Where's Waldo? Well, here we ask you to listen for the audible. Let's talk about the BU moment, the moment that we're in right now. It happens to be pretty special. Maybe one of the first of many. At this exact moment, we are both in what I call the bridge room.
That's right. We are together in Toronto, in the bridge room, live. Well, live as we can be on a recording, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, at least we have the energy to be live. It's not like we're not energetic, Dr. Energy. Let's talk about some funny things happened in the show, or will be happening in the show. Depends upon where you are at, if you're listening straight through. So at this exact moment, you are fully clothed. Now, just to preface that, earlier, later, however you listen to us, there was a hot moment in the state of confusion that we were discussing.
Yes, but this is still not 50 Shades of Grey.
Nope, still isn't. But it was quite funny that here we are in a live show and you started to show us what it's like to get hot. Okay, let's talk about the moment at this moment.
Yes.
So here we are in the bridge room. What are we facing? North, south, east, or west?
We are facing east.
Okay, that's great. Now I will know that. No, I'm actually facing west.
No, you're facing west. The windows are facing east.
Okay.
I'm facing south. North.
Okay, now I'm facing south, so we get to move around here.
Yes.
So what's happening in this room is I'm looking out the window, but it's nighttime. We started this podcast
earlier today, and as you know, when you're doing this type of work, you can take as little or as long as you like to put it together. And yes.
Today was just an amazing day to have all this live face-to-face, as I call it, in-your-face work. I'm enjoying something that was put together for me without getting into it. A bunch of pictures. It's a nice collage, so I never really get to look at that. And here's the reason why. It's all about perspective.
It's all about perspective.
So I stood up and I sat down, and typically I'm standing up, and I'll do that, and here's what I'll do, you may hear a difference in my voice, but in order for me to change what I see, I need to take a step back.
Right.
So talking about confusion, about where we are at the moment, today I learned something. I learned that being in this moment, in the room with you and our guests live, I had to change my position a little bit.
Right.
And in changing my position of control, where I'm usually at the helm over here, I had to take a step back over here. Anyway, I got to see things a little bit differently, and I'm happy to say that I am colorfully dressed.
Yes, I like it. It's very nice.
Thank you very much. And we have a really great energy in the room. I guess because we were all here today, that's number one. Number two, we're happy to be here. And number three, we get to feed off each other's energy.
Right.
So at this exact moment, I feel very calm and serene. Maybe because it's getting late. But aside from that,
that's usually punch drunkenness, but that's okay.
Okay. So calm, serene. I also like being surrounded by my crystals. It's a really nice thing for me. I don't want to say like it has to be, but in this room, the energy is great because I have gifts from clients over the years and gifts from family members. And just, it's great. It's great to be standing here in a colorful thought process, wearing color, looking at color, being surrounded by people that I can't see because, well, they're in a collage, so they can't talk to me. But it's really great to have them with us today. And that's my state of being in my VU moment. Tell us about you.
Well, I was really excited because this is the first episode where we have been together in the same room and with our guest in the same room with us. So all three of us were here together, gathered around the microphone, not a campfire. Although I got to sit around a fire earlier this weekend in a hot tub, that was pretty good. And so just being here in the energy of the three of us being together, it lent a slightly different energy to what we were doing, what we were talking about, confusion. And I think it was a really nice synergy of us being together in the room, a much deeper connection with the three of us than we sometimes have when we're talking on the phone or using Zoom or another type of service.
Right.
And it's been a while since I've been here in the bridge room. It's been, at least 6 months or more since I've been here. So it's a familiar place, and smelling the essential oils and seeing the crystals and the pictures and the collage, it brings back lots of good memories. So it's really, really fun to do it this way today.
Well, thank you. And it's making me think about putting it in our schedule to be in your face to face together, so that we can do a few shows a year.
Right.
And whether our guests are in the same place, it would be nice to do that, to organize it.
Right.
So whether it's in Montreal or Toronto or Ottawa, wherever it is that we end up going, that we could have our guests there, because our guests can be from anywhere. So we can plan that. If you're listening right now and you're in another city and it works out that we're visiting, we could record a show according to the schedule and availability.
Well, we can take the laptop and the microphone with us, and we can record pretty much anywhere. So I'm thinking the beach.
Okay.
The sound of waves rolling in the background.
Well, that's the background noise that we'll allow to have.
Exactly.
We're usually concerned about all the background noise, but not in that case.
Yeah.
So listen for those audibles.
Yes.
Guess where we are? Like, don't go in front of a train station or a train.
If you see the light, what is it? The light in the end of the tunnel? Make sure it's not an oncoming train.
How far will I go for an audible? Now that's kind of interesting. At this moment, I don't really have to go too far. My reach has everything in front of us, but okay, that's good for us to think about.
Absolutely. Be
in face-to-face contact, explore each other's energy, and see how it comes through on this podcast. If we have, and when we have comments from our guests, let us know if you feel anything different from us today.
Exactly. And I think that's a great place now to switch over to our interview with David Cohen of the David Cohen Group, I think.
All right, let's do it.
Ready to go? Let's go.
All right, I'd like to introduce our awesome guest today. His name is Mr. David Cohen. Let me tell you a few very interesting facts about David. David is an author, a business coach, a facilitator, a former host and producer, and a creator of the Small Business Big Ideas show, heard weekly for over 9 years.
Wow.
David has taught thousands over the years in both the nonprofit and for-profit sectors, and has coached hundreds of startups to make those important first steps. He specializes in helping small business owners mine their strengths, get clear on their value, their markets, and then begin to develop a sales and marketing game plan that gets results. A man who needs no introduction. Mr. David Cohen. David, thank you so much for being on our podcast.
It's nice to be here.
I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, I am too.
And there's a specialness to this podcast as well today, because this is the first time we're all in the same room together. Usually we're doing this over the internet or over phone, so this is kind of bringing a special energy to today's episode.
It is. So if our guests want to know where we are in Etobicoke, We're in Toronto, Ontario. And yes, we're all looking at each other. So you can't see us, but we're all pretty excited. We're all smiling. We're happy to be here. We're new friends and old friends in the same room, what I call the bridge room. Let there be no confusion about what is happening today.
There's no confusion about what that was.
What we are here to discuss is confusion. Now, let me ask you a question. When you think of the word confusion, David, what comes to your mind right away?
Indecisiveness, not being able to decide and make a choice.
Okay, that's great. Dr. Energy, let me ask you, what comes to your mind?
Confusion, lack of clarity, not being able to see the trees for the forest. So you can't see individual aspects of things. There's just this big cloud of fog around me, and I just can't see my way out.
Okay, I'll tell you what I think, but I'll give you a description first. And then I'll tell you what I think. And I'm not influenced by this, what I'm going to read to you here. Confusion is a symptom that makes you feel as if you can't think clearly. You might feel disoriented and have a hard time focusing or making decisions. Confusion is also referred to as disorientation. In an extreme state, it is referred to as delirium. Now, when I think of confusion, I agree with all of that, but here's what comes to my mind. What do I wear? What am I going to put on?
Oh, right, because you're in clothes again. That's right.
Exactly. So I want to know when I walk into my walk-in closet, what am I going... Now, I often think about this. What could I do to eliminate the mass confusion and bring it down to just a medium-sized confusion? So what I did is I color coordinated my hangers monochromatically, which gives you an idea of how my brain thinks. So I'm not a fan of confusion. Let's talk a little bit about, on a personal level, what confuses us and give our audience a little bit of a peek into who we are. Okay. So, David, are you open to this conversation?
Totally.
Okay, I want to ask for permission first. Dr. Energy, are you open to this?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
Are you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, funny, I thought about me last, but I have to be now because I asked.
You brought it up. You got to be in.
Okay, what confuses us? So, David, give us an insight to things, or one thing that confuses you.
One thing is around my work and career. It's like there's so many things that I love to do, and it's like, oh man, what do I choose? You know, where do I go? Where am I going to make the biggest impact and get the best, return on my investment of time and money and energy and all that, right? So I think that's the one thing that confuses me the most. I don't have that problem with what to wear. I even have lucky underwear or lucky socks everywhere. So I think if I wear them, it's going to be a good day, So.
Okay, so you're talking about so I'll just elaborate a little bit on this, right, so our audience can understand. What do you mean when you say about your business and career? What part confuses you?
Well, that's a good question. So this year was a big year of change, a health issue and that was healed, and also job loss. So I was working full time, and there's no confusion about that. You go in, you do your work, you come home. So now all of a sudden I'm not there anymore, and I'm going, okay, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? And all these little things start to show up and opportunities, and I have a hard time saying no to them. And now, so I'm getting better at it. And actually, the universe is actually forcing me to really, really hone down and get clear. So in the beginning, there was so much choice and so many neat projects I wanted to be involved with that it was a little confusing. And now I think I'm narrower and I'm more focused and more sure.
Now, no pun intended on narrower.
Yeah.
And then I caught something about the universe. So if our audience is thinking, what is David Cohen talking about in the universe? What does a message from the universe look like for you?
For me, it's just sort of a direction to go in, just clarity of the direction. So when I say the universe, it's just, maybe it's life's process, right? This life is showing me that, you know what, maybe that original idea, not a good idea. it's not going to bring enough income or benefit. It's like, why are you really doing this? What's the motivation behind it? And so just living life and going through the process of living life and trying things and seeing, and then it kind of will clear things up on its own for you. It'll point you to the direction you really need to be in.
So the question that I have, David, is kind of what is the process of that clarification for you? So when you say that the universe, is it something like that you hear, or something you see in your mind's eye, or do you take an action and see where it goes and take the information from that, or is it something you feel in your body? Like, what's your process?
That's a good question. For me, it's a feeling in the body. It's a gut feel.
Okay.
It's like, it's not feeling right. It feels off. It's like, okay, I'll give you an example.
Yeah,
So I just did a webinar the other day. So it was a joint venture.
Okay.
And we both, promoted it and emailed and Facebooked and today she emails, and today she said, I think I'm going to beg off this. And I went, oh, phew, thank God. Because it's like, I feel the same way. And now I can really, okay, so it's a process. I think, what we talked about after that webinar is life seems like it's a process of letting go. And the more you let go, the more the thing you need to be doing opens up. And it could be a relationship, it could be a friendship, it could be a work thing, it could be letting go of clothes, your wardrobe. Maybe it's time to give to the donation box. So the more you let go, the thing you need to, you're directed to the thing you need to do.
Okay. So it's almost like, it sounds to me like it's frees up energy for you, like or mental processes that you don't have to devote to something that you didn't really want to do, or it's not working anyways, and now that energy can go somewhere else.
Right. And I feel it also, it's the universe are saying, no, it's time to play a bigger game.
Step up.
Okay. Dr. Energy, there was a good play on words. I'm listening to you. It frees up energy. I could hear it as it freezes up energy. That's why you have to let go. Or after you let go, it frees up energy. Yes. I love listening and not doing anything else, because you can hear things so differently.
Yes.
Let me ask you, can we move on to you?
Sure.
Ready? All right. Let's talk about,
One
David.
thing I'm going to interject. You said freeze, and in FREE apostrophe S, but also I heard freeze.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, like freeze.
Freeze.
And when we have clarity, when we come out of confusion, sometimes we're frozen in moving forward out of fear. So,
exactly.
Exactly. It's stuck. And that's another word for that, right?
Exactly.
So you can freeze it up. Our audience can't see me using my foot to kick it out.
Kick it in the you-know-what.
Yep, and then free up that frozen energy.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about what confuses you. And we may get into depth with it, so be open to David and I asking you questions, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, I think we'll illustrate it a little bit by a story.
Okay.
If that works. So, we were talking earlier off microphone that I've recently moved from Toronto to Ottawa. It's about a little over a year now. And before I made that decision, there was a lot of things were up in the air, a lot of confusion. I didn't know what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. Did I even still want to be practicing as a chiropractor? Or what did I want to do? Where did I want to go? And there's a lot of confusion, a mental fog. I didn't have a lot of clarity in that. And so this one particular day, I had been sitting at the computer working because I had some projects that I needed to get done on the computer, and I'd been sitting at the computer most of the day and hadn't done a lot of physical activity. So I was feeling kind of stuck, frozen, locked up. And so I figured I needed to go for a walk, clear my head before I started winding down for the evening, because this was late at night. It was about 10 o'clock at night. And so I went for a walk through the neighborhood. It was a blustery late fall day, and the wind was blowing. It was dark and had that smell, the dampness of the earth and the leaves that had fallen off all the trees. And I was walking and walking, wondering, what am I going to do? Why am I still even living in Toronto? There's really not that much for me here. And all of a sudden, I heard this voice in my head said, "It's time to move." And it was clear, and it cut through all of the confusion and the fog, just pardon, and I saw this word in my head, Ottawa. And that's when I made the decision to move to Ottawa, and all that fog, and then everything, like you said, David, the universe life put in front of me the necessary steps to take to make it happen.
So I like what you said there, because the universe does leave clues and give you clues. So I'm working on a big project, and I got a few people say, "Oh, you should do this again," and that's what I'm working on.
So one of my friends, this goes back about almost 10 years ago now, to when I was in a workshop or a coaching program, and one of my colleagues said the clues that you get from life or from the universe are a future version of you, leaving clues for you in the present.
Wow. So the other thing I heard you say there in your response to that question that Kathryn asked is you have to get clear and go outside and get your head clear and get into your body. How important is that process for you to break through confusion? And then once you made the decision, things started to become clear and move.
Yeah. The physical movement for me is very big. So I'm pretty athletic. I golf, I mountain bike, I play hockey. I've been an alpine ski racing coach for 30 years. So for me, the movement in my body just reflects movements in my life. So when I catch myself not moving physically, that's when life tends to bog down and things get a little muddy and confused. And it gives my mind too much time to think about the past or what could go wrong or what might not happen. And when I get moving, it just gets me into action. And from there, then I can take the information that comes back and then make a new decision, then take that information. It becomes this loop of interacting with not only myself in my life, but everybody else around me.
Well, I heard you say something. Every show I learned something new about you. Where was I when you were going through that confusion? Here's what I'm thinking to myself. What kind of friend was I? I didn't catch that. I mean, I must have known on some level, but on some level, I think I didn't know enough to say, hey, well, I'm here. Yeah. So that's my bad for not catching that. I apologize in advance, and if it happens again, I will take a step in and let you tell me that I crossed the boundaries, and I will not take a step back so that you can have space. That day is gone. So forget about that from here on in. You had your space, and is no longer going to have that because friends need to be close to each other. So yeah, you're getting hot. He's taking off his sweater. Audience, get warm in here. I can open up the window. So
that's usually a sign for me as well that stuff is shifting when my body temperature starts to go up.
I understand. So here's what I want to say about this. I learned something new about you every single show. Our audience can certainly learn about their friends and family if they decide to listen. So you talked about moving and getting a sign, and you were thinking about, would you still want to practice? Continue practicing. The moment I want to tap into is the moment when you were thinking, do I still want to practice? What was the thought about, if I want to practice or if I don't, what will I do instead? Can you go back there for me?
Yeah, absolutely. So in that moment when I asked that question, the first thing that popped into my head was, yes, I still want to practice. And the reason being, the why of it was, I still have too many people to reach to help to empower the greatness in them, because that's my mission, is to empower greatness in everybody that I meet, whether it's through touch, through talking to them, through doing a workshop, through this podcast, whatever it is. It's about empowering your inner greatness. And what was the second part?
My question is, what were you thinking of doing if not?
So what would I do if not that? So I had been also at that point, as you know, studying a lot about online courses and digital and other forms of income. And so I knew that even if I didn't end up practicing, that there were other options out there, and that I had other ways of sharing my expertise and empowering that greatness in people.
And there I show up again. Good. Okay, I just wanted to see how it related to us.
Yeah.
Okay, so nice to know that when you have a partner and you have something that's going on in your life, you may want to check and balance with them. So if you have a partner doing a webinar, David, like you spoke about, Joe, you're talking about something with yourself and how you will and do continue to empower the people around you, check with those people and say, are you still in alignment with this idea? Because what if you were really gung-ho about that and that partner said, hey, I'm all ready for it, and you really want to back out? It's really important to avoid the confusion by stepping into it, owning it, and then see where it takes you. That's sort of what I understand from what you did. Okay, great.
I know you've got a story.
Oh gosh. Okay.
So,
at least one.
What I want to ask you one more question, Dr. Joe, and that is, what led up to the confusion?
What led up to the confusion?
Yeah.
There was a lot of changes going on in my life, personally and professionally at that time. Relationships, personal and business, and leases coming up, and I had moved several times, and I was just wondering what's next in my life. I was approaching my 50th birthday as well, and so that tends to be the time when we start to think about these things, and that certainly came up. And my colleague that I work with in Ottawa, we had been, he says not joking, I say joking, for several years, probably 7 or 8 years, about me moving to Ottawa and practicing with him. And then I called him literally the next day after I came to that decision, said I'm moving to Ottawa, and there was like silence on the other end of the line, and he said, I gotta go for a walk, I'll call you back. And he went out for a walk, and then he called me back the next day, and he was like, I was just so overwhelmed with the opportunity and in gratitude for you choosing to come and work with me and those types of things. And it was just a really cool experience, the whole process. So.
That is very cool. Thank you for sharing. Okay.
Yeah, I know you've got at least one story on confusion.
Okay, so the question is to talk about one thing, confusion in my life. Well, I'm going to go...
Start there anyways.
Okay, I'm going to start with really down-to-earth, ground level. I'm going to talk about navigation. So once upon a time, I would drive 50, 60 kilometers in a day one way to get to my appointments, because in real estate, which is what I was in, that business I was in my 20s, in New York, I was a real estate broker of record. So I started out in the typical real estate, rentals, houses, went to commercial, and then I specialized in international exchange, which I didn't need the car for. That was really done all kind of the internet. At that time.
Telephone at that time.
Telephone, exactly.
Fax machine.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Remember the little ringing?
That's what was happening when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
Right, so I would spend a good portion of my day driving all over. I would get in the car and I would drive. So one of the things I told myself was, I'm not going to do this unless I'm in a really nice car. So pardon my French, but it had to be a badass car for me. It had to be, because I'm a car maniac. So at that time in my 20s, the only car to drive around in was a Cadillac Fleetwood. And I thought
like every 20-year-old gets.
Like every 20-year-old was. I went and got a champagne-colored 4-door, beautiful, beautiful champagne interior.
Did it have the horn that sounded like the train? Train
No,
coming?
it didn't. No, it didn't.
Okay.
I actually moved to Canada with that Fleetwood. When I moved here, I brought that car with me because it wasn't too soon that after I bought it, that I moved here.
Right.
So geographically, I was all over the map without a problem or a care in the world about where I went. And I would drive everywhere and anywhere because my livelihood depended on it. My single parenting days depended on it. I paid my mortgage, which was $402 a month at that time. I bought my first house for $52,000. Put $500 down as a down payment and bought the house.
I think those days are long gone.
I was so glad I could remember that. It was so awesome to do that. The car, when the car was in the driveway to that house, it didn't make sense. But anyway, I ended up moving and taking another house. So what happened was, that was such an awesome time for me. I realized that I made a transition in my life. That when I no longer was getting paid to drive, I chose to not want to do it anymore. And I said, I don't want to drive. I always had cars, and I was complete. I would have 4 cars. Like, I wouldn't have 1, I'd have 4. I don't want to get into that story because that's just another episode. So
for another time.
Yes. So one day I sold all my cars and I walked. And I had a big transition in my life. And I walked for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months, and that was great. Anything I did now had to be walking distance. So, when I moved here, I thought, okay, well, I can, do whatever I have to do. I'll drive. I didn't have a career that required it. So I took sort of a backseat, like, I don't really know how I feel about it. The confusion set in when I didn't have a purpose to drive. My porpoise was gone. So I didn't have that real estate need. Let me pick you up. Let me meet you on the corner. Let me take you to the house of your dreams. Like, how you said you want to empower, or you do empower others. For me, it was about finding their home. That was what I was really good at. I can look at you and I would know what you needed. You would tell me because I had to go through the steps, but I knew what you needed. And I knew it before you told me, and I was a very good researcher for inventory. So I was a specialist in relocation, and I would look at inventory when most people say, oh, look at it when I need to look at it. That wasn't what I did.
You always had it at the ready.
I always had everything right at my fingertips. When I met you, I'm like, I know. So that was my MO. So when I came here and didn't have the same purpose anymore, I said I don't really want to drive. So confusion. Now, you can ask me north and south and east and west, and I'll pull out my compass. I know that I want my head to be east and west when I sleep. I know I don't want it to be north and south when I sleep. I know where the sun rises and I know where the sun sets. But when it comes to going somewhere, I'm like, let me look at the GPS. I use the GPS. I also prefer to be driven, because my new purpose for the last 11 years is I will work when I'm in the car.
Right.
If I'm no longer using the vehicle to get me to my end game, if that makes sense, the deal, the art of the deal, then I'm going to use the car as my time to create value for others and myself.
Right.
And so therefore, as much as I can drive anywhere I want or feel like, I have a new purpose, which is the confusion is to get in. I don't want to get in the car and not know where I'm going. I have to look at that GPS. It takes my energy. I've decided I'm going to use it for something else. So there's my confusion. When I get in the car, the purpose is gone, and I have to use GPS 100%, but not 1-2. Because I don't know if the GPS on the car is going to tell me the right thing, because it doesn't. And it sometimes doesn't even tell you the right traffic, and it has this. So I use 2. That's my state of confusion and how I cope with it.
You brought up a really important point that not a lot of us really talk about, but it happens. And what I heard you say there, Kathryn, was that when you gave up the real estate business, which was your baby and your expertise, you lost a bit of yourself in the direction, and you felt a bit purposeless. Or porpoise. You had a whale all the time. And anyway, yeah. Porpoise. Yeah.
Sorry. We like to have fun here too.
For sure, you have to have fun.
Even in the seriousness.
Yeah. So, how did you cope with having no purpose?
Oh, thank you. Well, I found another purpose. So when I left my real estate career, I moved to Montreal, and I dove into another business. So that business was a consulting business for a computer software company, developing software. So I decided to jump into a business in a province where I didn't speak the language, and the people that I spoke to didn't speak my language, and my assistant, who was hired for me, didn't speak my language either. So I found a new purpose, and that purpose was to make that a success. And let there be no joke about this. We do not have to speak the same language to have a success.
No.
People talk about communication. We could communicate in 2 different languages, and we can totally do what we need to do. When someone says, I don't understand what you mean, and yes, let's communicate back and forth, that's great. We do need to do that. But I didn't have to. So my new purpose was to dive into something more challenging, which was where I stayed for 27 years in a province where the language was now the new purpose for me. I still do not speak French, but I can listen to French, and maybe not now because I'm 11 years out of that, like listening to it, but I would manage very well. So I found something new, something, I don't want to say bigger, better, but I found something different that I could really dive into so that I can make a difference.
But there's a gap, though, between one and the other. So how do you cope with that gap, living in that gap? Because I've been there too, with giving up something that was near and dear to my heart, and I had no get up and go for about 4.
Right. Oh,
4
okay.
weeks,
So let
5
me
weeks.
relate to that. Thank you. So I always kept my hand in real estate. So what I should say is I didn't practice real estate with the license, but I continued to buy and sell and look at. To this day, I look at inventory on a regular basis. So I am not a licensed real estate broker because I was a broker of record. I had my own brokerage. I worked for a company in the beginning. So I actually have clients call me and say, I'm thinking of moving. Can I hire you to help me do that? So I still work in that capacity. Now, not as the agent walking through the house, but I will tell you this, and let's see if I can say this diplomatically. I will often visit homes and be given quite a leniency because of my 30 plus years, 36 years, because of the experience. And buying and selling homes or properties or investments are really not a difficult thing for me. They're very easy for me to see the water, or the forest through the trees, I was going to say, or the water through the bridge, under the bridge. So I stayed connected to what, and I still do, to what really keeps me very interested. So real estate is something I will always do. I will always be involved in it one way or another, and I love to help somebody find a home because I'm
That's who you are.
relatively,
So, but then there's confusion that comes from being in that gap.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
and so for those listening, I'm kind of curious, Dr. Joe, like how would you coach somebody? Because we're all going through such change. Either we're going through a job loss, or careers are changing, or industries are changing, AI is taking over. Maybe we've had a health issue and we can't do what we used to do. I have a colleague who used to drive trucks and can't do that just because of a health issue, right? And the physicality of the job. So how would you coach somebody, who's going through that state of confusion, going, wow, I used to do that, now what?
So for me, and that's a great question. I'm gonna have you answer. I'd like for you to hear your answer as well. The way that I practice and the style of chiropractic that I practice involves a fair bit of coaching or talking to people about what is going on in their life, and confusion or stuckness does come up quite frequently. And what I see happening for the most in our society, especially in Western culture, is we try to fix the stuck. We try to get ourselves unstuck really, really quickly. So the way I like to look at it is, and especially for those of us in northern climates, in the winter, in the car, in the snow, if you get stuck in the snow, what happens if you gun the engine?
You're not getting anywhere.
You're not getting anywhere. The tires spin even more and you only get stuck deeper. But if you just rock it forward and then back, forward and back, you're still stuck, kind of, but you're moving a little bit, so you have the sense of movement, and you're still not sure exactly what's going to happen, so there's still some confusion there. You're still rocking back and forth, and all of a sudden you give it just that little bit of pop. You pop right out of that rut, out of the stuckness, and all of a sudden now you're off and moving again. So the stuckness can often be fuel for the growth or the fuel for change if we can just sit with it or be with it in the moment and don't try to force our way through it. Embrace the stuckness as an opportunity to re-examine your life and say, what do I want to do? What does get me excited? What gets me out of bed in the morning? Why do I want to do that? So oftentimes the why behind what it is that you want to do is what will get us out of bed. And there are some days when you just got to get out of bed and pay the bills, and we all have those days occasionally. And fortunately, as for myself, those days become fewer and farther between, but they still happen. Life still happens, and you still get challenges, and you have to deal with them. So
That's a good analogy of the getting stuck in the snow, because there's two other steps there you could take. You can call for help, which is not a bad idea.
Which is a great idea.
Get a coach or talk to other people or get other inputs. And the other thing you could do is you could just wait it out. You can wait till April when the snow melts.
So the snow melts, or the snow comes down a little bit.
It comes down a bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's waiting is watchful waiting.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, it looks like the snow's go down, let me try it again.
So you're still going to have to live through it, but you'll wait until the situation clears up.
Yeah, because the emotions are going to come up when you're waiting. You're going to get frustrated. Sure. You're going to get angry, upset, probably a little, maybe sometimes even a little depression or anxiety. Oh, I got to be somewhere at this time, and I'm not going to be there at this time, and I start freaking out. So.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
And that was another show about anxiety. You just came to mind as you said that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, David. No. I'm thinking you're right. Anxiety comes up, and then how do we deal with that?
Exactly.
So, David, let me ask you a question, because you said you were going to give David an opportunity to answer that. Yes. So maybe I want to bring it right back to that and circle back to you, David. How would you coach someone on that?
Just live through it and let nature take its course. You'll figure it out. It'll come to you. Just be with it. I actually wrote my first book, was called Bust Out, and I wrote about this. So you mentioned I did the radio show. So there was one day in May where I got like you got jolted, like Ottawa. You saw Ottawa. I saw time to give it up, right? So I lasted 6 more months when my contract ended, and I gave it up. And and I did it every Sunday morning.
Right.
And for the first 4 weeks after I stopped doing the show, even though it was my choice to leave, I was listless. I had no joie de vivre. I didn't get out of bed. It was like, it's hard to get excited about doing your own cleaning on Sunday. It's a radio show, cleaning.
For me, it's tough to get excited about cleaning at any time.
Exactly. So I just had to kind of weather the storm, wait for it to go through it. I wrote about it, which was kind of cathartic, and it was a post to my book too. And I think sometimes you just have to kind of wait it out and just see what comes next, and trust that there's gonna, they say the universe abhors a vacuum. Something else will show, right, or show up, and we have so much choice. I mean, Sunday morning, I could have done a number of things. I could have gone to a class. I could have gone to a meditation group. You could go volunteer. There's so many things you can do
in the meantime,
and then, to fill it up in the meantime.
I'm curious, why did you choose Sunday? I'm so sorry, I just asked this quick question. No. You did the show for 9 years, right?
Yeah.
Why did you choose Sunday morning in the first place? Do you mind me asking, although it's slightly off topic, but I'm just curious about that?
That's a good question. My feeling, and I'm about to do another show, okay? I haven't announced it to anybody. I am here.
Breaking news.
Yeah. And I'll be on in Ottawa.
Okay.
Awesome. My feeling was Sunday morning was a time, it was a small business talk show, a success show. Sunday morning was a time where small business owners were home, right? And they were chilling out, and they didn't have to go anywhere for an hour, and you could listen to the show. But as it turned out, I had stiff competition Sunday morning. I was up against this guy named Jesus Church and Coronation Street. And
I'm not sure which one's bigger.
I know. Right? Coronation Street won out. So I did have competition. But I just thought that was a good time. Because like during the week, you're busy, you're doing things at night, you're networking, maybe you got the kids at night. Sunday morning is a time where you can kind of just chill, listen to the radio, sip of coffee, read the paper, whatever. Yeah.
Right. Well, I appreciate you answering that, and I wonder if 9-10 years later you could actually say that the life of an entrepreneur has shifted a little bit, because Sunday morning could be a Wednesday morning in the life of an entrepreneur. They could say, this is my Sunday, this is my day not to go to church, but this is my day to sip my coffee because I work on Sunday and that's when I see my clients.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. Dr. Joe Energy.
Dr.
Joe Energy. Can you add something to that about the state of confusion before we move on to the next segment?
Yeah, I think that it's just, like David mentioned, there are so many things that we could be doing in the meantime while we are in that state of confusion. I think it was the Genesis had that song, Land of Confusion, right? And there's so many things going on in life, and right now in Canada we're in the midst of a federal election, which the vote's coming up in a little bit. And so there's a lot of confusion out there about who to vote for and what are they really saying? Are they even saying anything? And who should I be talking to find out the right information? Where should I go for sources of information? But just taking an active role in working with the confusion, working with the stuckness, allows us to grow through it, transcend it. So we take it, use it, and grow to something different.
Do you have a methodology that you use, Kathryn, to help you go through it?
rephrase a question. So
Like, do you have a methodology that sort of works for you when you're in a state of confusion that helps you break through it?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I would like to share something very recent, what I am doing through some small state of confusion, which can get very big, in my opinion, if I don't address it. So if I don't address my state of confusion and I let it go, it could snowball. So here's what I do. I observe, I take notes, and I create a timeline. Now, I don't want to use that as some cliche, like I create what I want to do today, what I want to do tomorrow.
So like a process.
Absolutely. And I will say, all right, this is the situation, this is what I initially expect to happen or expected, this is where I'm at. So what are the steps for me to, first I need to revise, where am I going? Am I still going to the same place? Has that changed? If that hasn't changed, what are the steps I need to take to get there? So if I am in the same place as I started from day one, obviously I'm not, because there's some progress. Maybe I could be a little up or down, or left, north or south, or east or west. I will write out the steps. So this is what I want to do, and I will allocate blocks of time to it, so that I do not let it interfere with my yoga, with my other businesses, because I do operate 4 businesses simultaneously. So if I do have a state of confusion on business A with client B, I need to address that so it's not interrupting my mental and physical health, rejuvenating myself so I don't get drained. So I create a process for that. I create a system where a system may have existed, but it needs to be revised. I am a very big advocate of reframing. So for me, reframing something means take a look at it, step in, step out, step back, step sideways, but definitely step left foot in front of the right foot and make a plan. That answer your question?
Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything that... Okay, I'd like to go to the next step.
Sure, absolutely.
So the next step I'd like to talk about is what we call our BU final moment. Now, our final moment is one of 3 steps, and that's our takeaway. And I'd like to hear David's takeaway. We can all share at this point, if it's okay with you. What would you, and in as many words as you want, David, what would you call, or how would you describe, your BU final moment for today? What's the takeaway that you have from our show? With you, thank you so much, being our fabulous guest.
How informative I think it is, and I hope people are listening. And that I guess the takeaway is that if you are going through change or a life circumstance that has you confused, don't beat up on yourself. My morning ritual is I do affirmations and I meditate and I exercise right before I start my day. And my affirmations today were I'm loved, I love me, and I'm magic. So reaffirm, even though you're going through a state of confusion, and we might not be thrilled with that as human beings. we might beat up on ourselves. Oh, what's wrong with me? I should know better, right?
Right.
But sometimes we don't know better, and it's okay. Sometimes it's okay to idle at your car and not go anywhere, or to be in neutral, right? Yeah. It's okay. Everything's okay. Even this is okay, because this too shall pass. You'll find it. You'll discover it. You know, as a teacher once said, he talked about his booby. And how do I do this? Well, you'll go, you'll look, you'll see, you'll do, you'll find.
Please have such great wisdom.
Yes. So I like that. There's my BU.
Thank you. That's awesome.
I heard one thing you said there about this too shall pass. And I used to say that all the time. And I've recently, I think I've shared this with Kathryn recently. I've recently reframed that to this too is passing. Because to my mind, here's this too shall pass. It's in the future. So I'm always putting it out there in the future. It's going to pass in the future instead of it's passing now. And that just takes some of the edge off the, you asked about what we do in the moment of feeling confused. For me, that takes some of the anxiousness or that place where the monkey mind wants to chatter.
The doubt, the fear.
It brings that, talks it off the ledge, basically, because now I'm saying this too is passing. It's like, now I feel like I'm moving through rather than it's going to be something in the future.
Right.
Good point. Can you share with us your BU moment, please?
So for me, the big takeaway is that confusion is okay. It can be fuel for growth, and just when we are able to embrace the confusion and the feeling of stuckness and all the emotions that come up with that we can actually use it as an opportunity to move ourselves forward, but without forcing ourselves to move forward.
Thank you.
What about you?
Thank you for asking. What is my BU final moment?
Takeaway, yeah.
We are people. People are people. Really good friend, I guess I can say, and a really great mentor, and a great guy in our life, Jordan Adler. He says this: people are people. And my takeaway from today is that's what we are. We're people. We all work around and with what we're given. Some of us slower, some of us faster, but we all do it because that's what the God-given breath gives us, the ability to deal with it.
Right.
And as we choose free will, we are in a country of free will, correct?
For now.
For now. We get to choose. For today, for today, at this moment, my takeaway is we all get to choose what's right for us. And it is whatever it is, we get to choose it. So I don't want to say that we can't have a better result, or things can't be worse, or say to yourself, why me, or why did that happen to me? We have the right to make a choice. And we all make the choices that suit us, whether we call in a mentor, or sit in the car, or rock it, or decide to gun it. Whatever. If someone wants to gun it and see how much further they won't get and then stop, then let them be it.
Right.
That's what they need to do. That's their process. So people are people. That's my takeaway.
Beautiful. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome. Thank you. I want to thank David for being our guest.
What a joy.
Today.
Live and in person, the three of us, we can hold hands and sing
History.
Kumbaya.
Okay, let's hold hands. Hold hands. Okay.
Feel the energy.
Okay, our guests are going to feel that. So this is the first time that we've done a live podcast, and it is a pleasure. It has been a pleasure, and it is definitely a pleasure to see you, David.
You too.
This is great. I want to see you more often. We don't have to record ourselves because the conversations might be something we don't want to record. But we should have some more offline conversations. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Energy. This has been amazing.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, let our audience know that you just took off your sweater and you're still okay.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, okay, good. All right.
I am wearing a shirt, though.
Yes, you are. Okay. So.
And pants.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Thank goodness for that, because we're holding hands.
I know.
Thank you. This has been amazing. And to our audience, take a look. Take a look around you. Look at the people that are walking around. See if they look confused. Is there something you want to say to them? Do you want to reach out to them? Maybe that will make a difference. Remember, people are people.
People's is people's.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us again, where conversations worth having are on BU Network Podcast. Please leave us a review of our podcast on Apple. Thank you.
For show notes and links, go to www.b.network/podcast. Connect with us via our website, www.b-u.network, or build a relationship with us. Sign up to receive information, updates, and your free video training at www.b-u.network/pro. Find out when our online courses, trainings, and presentations go live, and our face-to-face live events in 2020 in Toronto and Ottawa, Ontario.
We're looking forward to hearing from you, and thank you for being with us. Ciao.
Ciao, babies.